is kind of what this court is doing, maybe very well or very poorly, depending on your viewpoint, is they don't like precedent, so they don't want to create it. So in all of these decisions, there's a ton of disclaimers saying that, well, they were talking about this specific situation, so please don't take it as a as a general
So,
rule. This is not applying this principle generally. It's just applying to this particular situation. So they're kind of trying to to kind of bite away what has been pretty much established with stare decisis over the years as a separation, as a secular separation of church and state. That was the interpretation. That was what we would say the mainstream interpretation of the First Amendment, which is just completely don't get into it, don't do anything about religion. So public schools would not even go in that area. They would say, okay, yes, there are religions, blah blah blah, but they wouldn't actually support whatever. And of course the Republican Party mostly has pushed the the ten commandments reading in schools or posting or whatever, prayers and in schools and things like that, and that's problematic. That doesn't really work well. Although it sounds kind of nice to people, hey, I'm free to say my prayer and you can say your prayer. First of all, that's kind of sucks for atheists who don't have a prayer. So what would they do? They would just read the physics book or something. I don't know. But there are religions where you don't have that, right? So it's kind of already kind of Christian, um, Judeo-Christian centric, right? And then it just doesn't. Then you have people like the Satanic Temple who kind of expose this absurdity in the way that it works with their traveling statue of Baphomet, and they pull, they just lug everywhere, just put it in front of the nativity scenes and courts and stuff wherever you have anything uh, related to religion, which is hilarious. I love what they're doing. They're awesome and they have a great sense of humor. So I would expect a similar thing happening here. Nowadays, you have I would say nowadays, especially the atheist organizations are much stronger than they used to be, with having more support overall. I think they were in kind of survival mode before, but now they are actually very very activist and doing a lot of things that, from their perspective, would help the First Amendment. Like the giant cross. I don't know if you watched that case, but there was a giant cross thing that was on public ground. It was a kind of veteran memorial. I think they lost that, but they did a good fight there. For example, the Freedom from Religion Foundation and people like that were basically lawyers, fighting for the First Amendment. So this is I don't think I would interpret it this way, but I can totally understand the arguments. They have consistency, they have merit, so it will pass. It won't be overturned. I think it's not easy to do it by any liberal court in the future, unless they're super militant and progressive and just say that this court was wrong and screw them. But what do you
say
think about this?
let them have it. Say let them have it. But let's remove the actually the biggest single avenue of um, or the way that the state is actually funding religion by not making them pay any taxes.
Yeah,
So make the
yeah.
churches pay their freaking taxes
Hmm.
and handle the schools as much as you want.
Hmm.
Probably from these taxes even. Why not?
Yeah, but this is
So
not
yeah,
actually. Yeah, this is actually financing from the state using subsidies. It's financing the religious schools, so the money is coming from the state to them. Yeah. So, yeah, the taxes argument. I think I would largely agree with that. I don't think I would be against that, because the arguments for letting them off the hook with taxes is largely historical. It doesn't really have any, any rational basis. I think it's just, we have. It's like, when people illegally park forever at a place and then they say, well, I was parking here forever, that makes it a parking. So I can parking lot. So I can just continue doing that. So I don't think that's a valid argument. I think, yeah, I think, I don't think that churches are charities in a classical sense. I think they do provide a very useful role to society, especially nowadays, where people are isolated and they don't have a sense of community at all.
Well, in America, a lot of them are also very much for-profit organizations.
Well,
There's
yeah,
a
I mean,
reason why.
sure,
Yeah,
sure. No, I'm talking about their value for society. I'm not talking, not speaking commercially here. I'm just saying the community building hasn't been replaced with anything else for a while now. Nothing else has popped in, and
yeah, sure. I mean, of course,
it's
let's
kind of nice
leave the
to,
churches
on
be.
a Sunday
I'm
you
not
go
saying,
to, go to talk to your neighbors who you mostly don't talk to, you go take the
yeah,
trash
I
out.
mean, that's fine. No, zero problems with that.
And
If I
people who
was
want to
living in the
donate, I
States,
mean, let them donate, right? Why not? But I don't think it's as pure of a charity as something like, Doctors Without Borders or Red Cross or something like that is, right? It
yeah, I
does have an
mean, like,
ideology, and not all people agree with that ideology, and so
sure, but
it
like
doesn't seem fair that, yeah.
you were talking as if there was like one church. There's
Mhm.
hundreds of them in the
Sure.
United States, and a good portion of them are real for-profit organizations, right? Like
Mhm.
with people buying private jets and so on and so forth. I'm sure you've seen some of those
Oh,
ridiculous
that's the
interviews with
prosperity gospel. That's
the
part of the, yeah. That they rationalize
yeah,
that by saying that's how God showed. That's how your prayers are
yeah,
working.
but they're
Yeah.
basically they're for-profit organizations, and
Yeah.
they really definitely should be taxed. There's of course many different other what I would call actual churches
Mhm.
that do engage with all the or invest or at least distribute a lot of the funds that they raise back into community services or
Mhm.
activities and so on and so forth. But a lot of them don't. So I say,
Mhm.
yeah, tax the fuck out of them.
Yeah, if they're for profit, sure. I mean, it should be as easy as just making them non-profits if they don't want to pay taxes, right? Okay, people who receive salaries or whatever would be taxed just like non-profit employees are taxed just on their income. I'm totally okay with that. Make any organizations you like and let them be ideological and activist or whatever. But making a special case for religious organizations doesn't sit well with me. Again, especially because if you're doing this as an atheist, right? So which should definitely, I think, be included in the whole freedom of establishment, right? If you're an atheist, you're kind of screwed because you can't do anything. You don't get any of the benefits, right? People waste your time. You're not doing all of the things. You're vilified because people don't understand who atheists are. People think atheists are denying the existence of God. Like, no, there's no God for sure. I know this 100% or whatever.
Satanists,
So you kind of
worse than
suck if
Satanists.
you're an atheist. You kind of suck pretty much, right? Because you lose this community, the community aspect of churches, right? Unless you want to fake
Yeah,
it and go anyway, which some people do, I'm sure. Just for the
yeah,
networking and
yeah. I
um,
mean, there's worse things than
mhm.
being bored out of your mind for a couple of hours and then enjoying the company of your
Well, it's also a huge
community
network.
afterwards.
It's
Yeah,
also a huge network of people who are willing to help and know each other and can recommend each
yeah,
other.
support each other, of
Yeah,
course.
the Mormons have done this to perfection. The Mormon Church is
Yeah,
like a incredibly enormous organization that's super well organized and everybody pays its fair share. And I think they pay 10%. But if you're like homeless or whatever, you will get much more back from the church. That's one thing that they really, really do. They, you get, your car breaks, you get a mechanic who's a Mormon. He fixes your car for free. The plumber fixes your, whatever pipes for free. You get the value from paying that 10% or whatever. But
You get bulletproof underwear for free.
The protection is ethereal, so it's not actually bulletproof. Rational
Ah,
Meltdown doesn't support using underwear for bullet protection.